There was a huge federal hearing in the Middle District of Tennessee on Wednesday. You will recall that the Trump regime lost before a magistrate judge in the Abrego Garcia matter, where the Trump regime wanted to permanently detain Abrego Garcia during the pendency of his criminal proceedings in federal court after the Supreme Court said facilitate Abrego Garcia's return back to the USA. The Trump regime appears to have trumped up charges against Abrego Garcia for trafficking migrants. And if you heard what they said in public, they try to make it seem like it was like trafficking minors and drugs and all of these horrible things. When you read the criminal complaint that was unsealed or filed in the Middle District of Tennessee, it was basically just traveling with migrants to work in nearby areas. Abrego was pulled over in Tennessee in 2022. That's why this case is being brought in Tennessee. And it was like a traffic stop or a highway patrol stop. Abrego was allowed to go because, they didn't see any crimes that were being committed. But that's the basis, this highway patrol stop of Abrego in this SUV with other individuals who now the government's claiming, the Trump regime's claiming this was a smuggling ring. And during the detention hearing that took place a week or two back, the government was relying on people who were like convicted of felonies, who had been deported 5 times, who were living in halfway houses. And the magistrate judge is like, what the hell are you doing? Basically, this is the evidence that you're bringing. Who are these people? Like felons who have been deported multiple times, hearsay on top of hearsay. So we got the order that dropped after a pretty significantly long period of time. We had Adam Klasfeld from All Rise News, who kind of broke it down for us and predicted what the outcome was going to be. The outcome was a very thoughtful order by the magistrate judge saying, release Abrego. I don't care what they like. If ICE is going to try to detain him, that's not my lookout. I'm just applying the standards of, is Abrego a risk to the safety of people? He is, and he's been living in the U.S. and has a family. He worked in a union in Maryland. He was stealth checking into ICE during the Biden administration. So what the hell's going on here? So now it went to a district court judge, and the district court judge is an Article 3 judge. A magistrate judge is not. So the district judge technically could overrule what the magistrate judge. So one of the things that could have happened on Wednesday is the district court judge says, I don't like what the magistrate judge did. That's not what happened. The district judge was good with what the magistrate judge did. But now they got to figure it out because the Trump regime is going to try to use ICE immediately once they walk this guy out. They've already got their ICE agents and other court cases literally like hiding in the bushes. So are they going to try to grab him and then deport him? Where are they going to deport him to? Are they going to deport him? They can't deport him to El Salvador under the current orders, but can they deport him to Mexico? But then Mexico deports him to El Salvador. And that kind of chain deportation is something that would need to be avoided as an end run around the orders. That's a defense Abrego has. So all of these issues were addressed in court today. Let's bring in Adam Klasfeld from All Rise News. It was also Abrego's wedding anniversary, of all things. The human element should not be forgotten. This is a human being we're talking about who was put in CCOT in El Salvador, was used as a prop during a propaganda stunt by Donald Trump and Bukele, a few months back. Who's now detained, who's not with his kids, who are American citizens, and not with his wife. I don't want to lose sight of that. I know you don't at All Rise News. But one of the things I want to say, Adam, before I toss it over to you, is also that you show up at the court appearances. You're physically there. And one of the reasons that MeidasTouch is so supportive of your work, in addition to I like you and we're friends, of course, though, is that we have eyes and ears in the court. So we're not speculating and saying, we think this is what happened. You were there. You traveled to Tennessee. You see it. You speak to the people. So tell the Meidas Mighty, what is it that you saw?
So I want to take the Meidas Mighty first about what happened before the hearing. This was an afternoon hearing, and in the morning, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, gave statements at one of the local advocacy groups, the Tennessee advocacy groups headquarters in the neighborhood of Antioch. And that was where she said it was their wedding anniversary and they're spending it apart, and she's spending it apart from their 3 special needs children. So that is the human element that we're talking about. And this is a case that has deeply affected the community here. The last time there was a court hearing, there were some 300 people demonstrating outside the courthouse. That's because about a month before Kilmar Abrego Garcia's arraignment, there was a raid of the immigrant community here that swept up nearly 200 people. And I heard some stories about that. I'll be reporting on that. So that's some background to today's hearing. And you could see Kilmar and Jennifer Vasquez Sura both in the courtroom, sitting dozens of feet away from each other. And for most of the hearing, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is in his prison uniform, red and orange. He's very much engaged in the proceedings. Then there's a recess. And on their wedding anniversary, they get to exchange a loving glance that lasted several seconds. And then back to the hearing, where today was supposed to be the day where the judge comes up with the conditions of release. But he's not released today, because there are 2 more unanswered questions that the court needs to resolve. One, will the Trump administration try to deport him if he is released? Will he go straight into ICE custody? And as you said, Ben, get sent straight to Mexico, which will try to potentially send him back to El Salvador? Or will he get to stand for his right to a fair trial? Will he get to court? So the unresolved question number 2 that we're going to hear briefing about very soon is, will he be able, if he's taken into ICE custody, be able to be near a courthouse, a jail near the courthouse, where he can prepare for trial adequately, where his lawyers can communicate with him about trial strategy, about the cooperators who are testifying against him, and really get his day in court? Or will that be end run? So that's what was unresolved at the hearing. But interestingly enough, and you teased it out, Ben, in your introduction, in the middle of the hearing, the district judge who was overseeing the ruling for this release order, that paved the way for this release order, came down with a ruling that no, he will not pause it. It was another defeat for the Trump administration. There was a very interesting point, and this is a bit of a change of topic, but it's very interesting. Those of us who watched our last broadcast, and there were quite a few, as I recall, know that the cooperating witnesses in this case have gotten promises of help with not only their criminal problems. Both of them are convicted felons. One of them is a 5-time deportee trying to avoid deportation number 6. But the new legal all-star team for Kilmar Abrego Garcia came out made a very simple point. Sean Hecker, who was formerly E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, said that if the government is doing these favors for these 2 cooperating witnesses to make sure that their deportations are delayed, why can't they do the same for Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Remember, the whole argument of the government here is that they can't, the DHS is a totally different branch of the government. We can't control it. If you release him, Your Honor, it'll be in the hands of DHS, and then ICE can deport him and we won't have the trial. His new defense team, his all-star defense team, made the very simple point. How is it possible that these 2 cooperating witnesses, suddenly the government has the power to help them with their immigration situation in order to testify against Kilmar Abrego Garcia? But you are powerless. You are, in the words of Sean Hecker, is the government so impotent that it can't suddenly, when faced with doing something to make sure Kilmar Abrego Garcia has the option of a fair trial, all of a sudden they're powerless, they're impotent? That's the question that is going to be briefed. There's going to be a legal brief that drops tomorrow, tomorrow, Thursday. And then on Friday, the government's going to respond to it. So we could hear something before the end of the week on this issue.
You've covered a lot of federal cases, probably thousands, and I'd venture to even guess tens of thousands in your career. A federal case like the one being brought against Abrego Garcia would have been dead on arrival in a normal DOJ that sifts through this type of evidence. They would never bring this case. They would say, why are federal officers and officers of the court utilizing resources to prosecute a case like this, even if they thought there was a low-level crime being committed, setting aside the horrible evidence? This would be a case that was dead on arrival. But I think what we see with these hearings is that the evidence keeps on killing this case and the premise that this case was built upon, where they've made all of these allegations about Abrego being this horrible person, this felon, this the worst of the worst of the worst. And now they're actually relying on felons who are deported, who are actual dangerous people, to be cooperating witnesses against Abrego, who is just out there in Maryland working for a union, showing up to his appointments, going through the lawful process. I don't want the point to get lost that Trump is literally relying on criminals who have been deported multiple times as the star witnesses and giving them the favors to go after Abrego because, and I'm not going to get into foreign policy, but what all of this seems to be about is photo ops and looking tough and looking menacing and looking powerful. But our justice system was built on the truth and evidence. And it just seems the evidence keeps on getting killed every time we see this. I'll give you the final word, Adam.
Well, one of the things that is interesting about the current posture about finding out, will they deport him? It's a way to end run the presentation of evidence. If the whole point that brings people here, that's brought me to Nashville to watch this unfold, you've raised these serious allegations, government, about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Let's see the evidence in court. Let's have a reckoning on those allegations. And instead, what we're hearing after the first reckoning on it, during this detention hearing, where the judge, as you noted, said during the hearing that this was double hearsay and then memorialized that in a ruling. Now we're discussing, does the government have the power to make sure that he actually can go back to the same court to have a trial with a jury of his peers? Or are they utterly powerless and end run the presentation of evidence by shipping him out of the country anywhere on the map that are able to? That's what feels like the gamification of everything here.
I want to remind everybody about, again, your original reporting. You go into the courtroom, you observe it, you report it so other people can talk about your reporting. It's why what you do is so important. It's old school, but new school all in one. And it's one of the most, it's invaluable. So I want to remind everybody about your Substack at All Rise News. And you and I have talked about building a YouTube channel together and other things that I think would be a great service to the public as well. So everybody stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, check out All Rise News on Substack. And of course, you can follow Adam Klasfeld across his socials. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Ben.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.